We'll make some sense of the budget, but there is much more to talk about than that. Your response to my China warnings on Monday night about the prospect of a biological war demonstrated the degree of public understanding and concern. It doesn't seem to be matched by government. Last night, one word was missing from the budget speech: China. I said on Monday that the enemy of Australia today is not so much China, but rather those in authority who neglect to recognise that China is a threat. Of course, there is a further threat to Western democracy, and that lies in the weakness and incoherence of the 78-year-old US president who can't deliver a sentence without notes or a teleprompter. Just have a look at this bloke. Now, we can't be serious that this is the leader of the Western world. Do you think he knows anything about China?
The way China will respond is when we gather the rest of the world that, in fact, believes in free in open trade and making sure that we're in a position that the world that we deal with WHO the right way. That in fact, that's when things begin to change. I looked at it anyway. That's what I think my plan. I know what my plan does.
Senator, I mean, but I mean, it's not about. I know you're supporting by saying booing, but look, here's the deal.
Here is the same man talking about entering the Senate 180 years ago and 10 years as vice president. 180 years ago. Listen to this, and 10 years as vice president.
That's why I've made it a priority my entire career to work closely with you. From the time I got to the Senate 180 years ago, as well as my tenure as vice president.
From the time I entered the Senate 180 years ago and my 10 years as vice president. This is elder abuse. The man should go. But what is just as bad is that all we get from a new Biden administration, brainwashed by the left, they can't trot out anything to him and he'll say what he likes. It's just woke nonsense. And should Biden go, of course, as he surely must, Kamala Harris would be worse. This affects us. I'll come to that in a moment. You will recall that at the International Summit on Climate Change, Biden read the left-wing bureaucratic line to cut 2005 level greenhouse gas emissions in half by 2030. Now, that's a goal twice as ambitious as that even set by the Obama administration. To his credit, our Prime Minister didn't commit himself to this net zero emissions nonsense by 2050. Biden responded by ranking our Prime Minister on the list of speakers 22 out of 40. Who was the number one speaker? China, whose contribution to global emissions in 2018 was greater than that of the entire OECD. If it's not climate change, it's the determination of Biden backers to pack the Supreme Court with additional justices to accommodate the lurching left of the Democratic Party. Franklin D. Roosevelt tried this in 1937 and failed. No president since has tried to change the court. But Biden's under pressure from the left and doesn't have the cognitive capacity to take them on. In another left-wing announcement, he has said that America would take in up to 62,500 refugees this year, more than 4 times the cap imposed by Donald Trump. And reading from a left-wing bureaucratic script, Biden stumbled out the argument that, quote, the low number set by the previous administration of 15,000 doesn't reflect America's values as a nation, whatever that means. But of course, the Mexican border, or like the Mexican border, if you let them in, Biden's team would be hoping that next time round they'll vote Democrat. But now to Australia, because one of the biggest issues Biden now faces is the US pullout from Afghanistan by September 11. That'll leave 17,000 Afghan interpreters who've risked their lives working for the US military and are now trying to leave the war-torn country ahead of Biden's September 11 deadline when remaining US forces will be withdrawn. Now, understand me, these are Afghan interpreters who've been helping us in Afghanistan. The Republican Michael McCall got it right when he said, and I quote, these interpreters have a bullseye on their backs, unquote. We have a duty and a moral responsibility to protect them from the Taliban and Al-Qaeda, warned Republican McCall. If we do not give them special immigrant visas, they'll be left behind and slaughtered by the enemy, unquote. President Obama's very ambassador to Afghanistan, Ryan Crocker, addressed the issue in the New York Times when he said the Taliban view them as traitors, unquote. This is Obama's ambassador to Afghanistan. But in Biden's advanced state of cognitive decline, Biden wouldn't have a clue. Says Crocker, since 2014, there have been at least 300 targeted killings of people who worked with us. Now, they worked with American troops and our troops. He went on, many more will die if the administration doesn't take immediate steps to speed up the process and get them out safely, unquote. The Republican Mike Waltz, who served multiple tours in Afghanistan, said, quote, they're being hunted down right now as we speak. They are reaching out to me, these interpreters, in a panic. Well, what's Biden's response of a handful of days ago? According to his defence secretary, there is no plan for evacuation. In other words, a pathetically weak and left-wing American administration under Biden has made no decision, in spite of multiple warnings as to how to protect these translators and their families after the US withdrawal is complete. Which brings us back to this Brereton report. Our men too were in Afghanistan, facing murderers and killers. Our men too had a bullseye on their backs. And now, because of Brereton and unproven evidence, our soldiers are being hung out to dry by people who've never fired a shot in anger. It is clear that the Biden administration and those in politics and the defence hierarchy in Australia who are happy to accept the Brereton reporter's brutal truths have one thing in common. Yep, we've got one thing in common with the Biden administration: the abandonment of those sent to serve, and now the abandonment of people like the Afghan interpreters who assisted greatly in that service. Hopefully someone will rescue these Afghan interpreters, just as hopefully someone will rescue the good men named in the Brereton report by those who have no idea what our men and the Americans were fighting in Afghanistan. Biden and Brereton are in the same camp. Neither the interpreters nor our soldiers should be sacrificed to the musings of those who seem to have little understanding of war.